Well, good morning and welcome back to the front page. I'm Dara Star Tucker, and you are listening to Radio Free 102.3 FM KJLH. Y'all, I am excited. I done already told you I'm excited. I'm honored. I'm thrilled beyond belief to introduce our guest for today, Mr. Jason Johnson. If you don't know who he is, go and look him up. Look up Professor Jason Johnson, because I think there are a couple of Jason Johnsons. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about him before we get started with our talk this morning. Jason Johnson is an American political scientist, commentator, and writer. Johnson is an associate professor of communication and journalism at Morgan State University. He is a regular political contributor to MSNBC and CNN. He has a couple of corrections already.
Yes.
Johnson earned his BA in government. Let me get through my spiel, Jason. Johnson earned his BA in government from the University of Virginia, followed by an MA and a PhD in political science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I did not know you had your PhD. I should be referring to you as Dr. Jason Johnson. Johnson is currently a tenured associate professor in the School of Global Journalism and Communication at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland, where he teaches courses focused on political and international multimedia journalism. Johnson formerly was a professor of political science and communications at Hiram College in Hiram, Ohio, where he taught American politics, comparative politics, campaign management, and communications. In October of 2010, Johnson was named the politics editor for The Source. He also served as a politics editor of The Root until early 2020. Johnson is a frequent television commentator locally, nationally, and internationally. He's a regular commentator on MSNBC, Al Jazeera English, and has appeared on Fox News channels, The O'Reilly Factor. He's the author of the book, Political Consultants and Campaigns, One Day to Sell. Welcome, Jason Johnson, to the front page.
Because I always want to give love and respect to the people who give love and respect to me. So
Yeah.
I am now, thank goodness, I am a full professor at Morgan State University in School of Global Journalism and Communications. Shout out to my Morgan Bears. I have to do that because there's all those bison around. They're always saying HU, so I have to make sure I say Morgan Bears. And I am, I'm a political contributor and host at MSNBC. I host the podcast A Word with Jason Johnson.
Yes, that's where I got to know you.
Yes. And I actually now am working on my own graphic novel. So
really?
Yeah. So that is my current state, but I will have to go back and ask my tech guy to change my Wikipedia again.
My Wikipedia probably hasn't been updated since 2017. I don't know.
Right.
And I don't have people, so I got to do it myself.
I'm fully expecting my Wikipedia to say, and Jason Johnson has a huge MySpace page. And I'm like, no.
Pretty much. It's pretty much reminded.
That dated. Okay. Black Planet says Jason Johnson is.
That got both. It's also cringe. I understand. I really do get it. But I really appreciate you for coming. I want to tell y'all how this happened. I posted a video of Jason Johnson that was kind of taking off online. I mean, he was spitting fire. He was on MSNBC. I don't remember who you were with. He was spitting fire. I mean, just facts upon facts. I'm like, man, this dude he gets it. Boom, put it up in my stories. I always try to tag the person, if I put it up in their stories, because I know from just being a content creator myself, if you put something in your stories and you don't tag the person, they don't necessarily know that they have been restoried or whatever by you. So I made sure to tag you, and you slid up into my DMs like, hey, I want to come on the front page. I'm like, what?
Yes.
You want to come on the front page?
I was very excited. Look, here's the thing, and I say this as somebody who is, I'm not a Luddite, but I'm so tech savvy, right?
Yeah.
I learn certain things from my students all the time. They help me. And, anytime I do a segment that leads to people being excited enough that they want to share it, that they want to email me or whatever, I respect that. I appreciate it. It shows people not only appreciate the work that I'm doing, but that what I said actually resonated.
Yeah.
And my ultimate responsibility is to say the kind, it's the old Eminem line, say the things you say with your friends inside the living room. I want to be the person that when I speak on the air, you hear it and say, yo, that's what we've been saying, perhaps with more profanity, but that's what we're saying privately.
Right.
And this person is sharing what regular folks who care and think about this country say. So I was very humbled, and I was happy to come in.
Absolutely. I'm just so glad you're here because my goodness, we got folks calling in, pretty much every day. We have opinions, we have thoughts, we have feelings about what is going on right now, but we don't really necessarily have folks who are in the trenches every single day paying attention to this stuff. I have said I have no intention of following the clown show, and that's what I call it, following the clown. It's my job as director of news here to know what is going on. But when it comes to what I share with our listeners, it really is focused on, hey, what impacts you?
Yes.
What impacts our community? What can you do about it?
Yeah.
And so, we're not just hearing this news kind of, the drumbeat every day, but I want to kind of access and take advantage of your expertise.
I'm whatever you can pull out of my brain, I'm going to spill it out.
So I'm just going to kind of rapid fire a few headlines before I kind of talk specifically about some of the executive orders that I talked about in our breakdown this morning. So, okay, we had a big infomercial that was happening on the front lawn of the White House. Unbelievable. Is this even, obviously it's not illegal. Trump is one of those that really tests the limits of, well, you didn't say I couldn't do it, unless you write a specific law that says you can't advertise cars on the front lawn of the. Is it illegal?
It is illegal. Look, this went back to the 2020 presidential election when Trump was, basically holding campaign rallies at the White House. Government agencies, government offices, government buildings, you're not supposed to use them to sell anything. You're not supposed to use them to campaign from. He breaks that law all the time.
Yeah.
So, yes, turning the White House lawn into Crazy Eddie's car sales, right, is essentially what he did, and that's illegal. And the problem, we'll get to this probably with every single one of these.
Yeah.
The problem is there is no value in saying that's illegal, right? That's like the bully takes your lunch already. It's like, you can't take my lunch. They did. They're down the street and they eating your sandwich, right? So the Democrats consistently fail, and I think oftentimes the press consistently fails to say, not just that this is illegal, but who the hell is responsible for holding these people accountable when they do something illegal?
Right.
And that's the problem. We don't talk about who's supposed to do something about the illegal thing.
Right. So who is supposed to do something about that?
So you could have Congress, if Congress actually wanted to exercise any power, right? The Democrats in Congress could say, hey, look, this thing that you just did with Tesla, absolutely wrong. You can't do that. I don't know if it's the Hatch Act or whatever it is. You're not supposed to be able to use the White House to sell things.
Yeah.
And consequently, we're not going to vote, say, for any budget right now. We will not allow cloture on any of these budget discussings or continual resolution or anything else like that unless you stop Dodge, unless you fire Elon, unless you this, that, the other. There are all sorts of things that you can do. But unfortunately, the leadership of our parties is not particularly aggressive, not particularly creative. They have what a friend of mine refers to as Senate brain all too often, where they're thinking about laws and triangulation as opposed to real flexes of power, which is what people respond to. And that's part of why we're in the situation we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to ask about the shutdown because I've asked a couple of folks. I had former Congresswoman Marie Newman on yesterday, and I said, what do you think about the shutdown? Do you think they should just allow the government to close? And she said, I have never before thought that was ever the right thing to do. But now, in this particular case, I feel that it actually is.
Here's the thing. The shutdown ain't going to be on the Democrat side.
Yeah.
The Republicans created a bill, right? They created a bill that they can't pass without Democrat assistance. And they made that bill without any sort of Democratic input one way or another. So let them sink or swim.
Yeah.
It's their bill.
Yeah.
If you don't like it and you can't get it passed, then you should do something, actually bring us into the process. What the Democrats are suggesting they might do now, which is pathetic, especially in the Senate side, is, well, we'll lower the threshold so that you can pass it with 51 votes instead of 60, et cetera, et cetera. But what we're going to do is open up the door for us to push through a lot of amendments. That is the equivalent of you get locked out of the club and you're like, well, okay, but can I stand outside and dance to the music? No, stands outside and dancing to the music ain't being in the club, right? Either go in the club or don't.
Yeah.
And the Democrats are insisting in this sort of naive, stupid way that negotiating with terrorists, negotiating with the Republican Party on these kinds of issues will somehow help people. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, whether you have a government shutdown, and look, I'm not insensitive. I'm in the D.C. metro area.
Yeah.
I know tons of people who are out of work. Like, this isn't theoretical for me. This is personal. I got family friends who were told, who worked at the FBI for 20 years, hey, you got 60 days to move to Huntsville, Alabama. You're going to lose your job. Wow. I got family friends who are in the Department of Homeland Security. I got, friends who are in the Department of Education. I have seen what these people are doing to government. Yeah. So when you say government shutdown, I know the personal impact, the economic impact, but it is necessary.
Yeah.
Because if we don't start making the Republicans accountable for their own messes, then we can't change how this country is going to function in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing that drumbeat, at least in, I'm really a part of more so the social justice community, the creator community, and pretty much anyone that I know and respect is saying the same thing right now. I want to talk about the trade war that is happening. What is the point? Please help us to understand why Trump would feel the need to come into office and immediately start a trade war with Canada, of all places, with Mexico. What is the advantage? Why is this considered a positive thing in his mind?
There is none. He just likes to flex power. I think one of the biggest mistakes, sorry about this, it's super hot for me this morning. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make sometimes, and I don't like doing this on the air, I'm very quick to always tell people I don't do psychoanalysis, right? I have a PhD in political science, not psychology.
Yeah.
We spend way too much time trying to figure out why Trump does what he does, as opposed to just being like, he don't even know.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any consistency. He wants a trade war because he can do it.
Yeah.
Because he likes tariffs. He doesn't understand what tariffs do.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand the value of tariffs, right? So the trade war with Mexico is, I don't like Mexicans. The trade war with Canada is, I don't like Trudeau because he's better looking than me, right? Like that's about as deep as this stuff goes. Anybody who thinks that these are decisions made of sort of long-term political or economic thinking do not understand and have not been paying attention to Donald Trump for the last 8 years. It does not make any sense to me. And so, no, there's no strategy to it. And we have to stop pretending. It's funny. It's like, imagine you see somebody on a mountain bike, like going down a hill, right? And they're going like this, that, the other. Now, I can say, oh, that's somebody coming down the hill. They don't know it's a bumpy hill, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can trick yourself into saying, oh, my gosh, I bet you they're a professional mountain biker. No, they're not. Mm-hmm. They're stumbling down the hill. Mm-hmm. This man is not a genius.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is not a genius. They're just doing random stuff and hoping it doesn't get them in trouble.
Yeah, and I think we have, especially in the United States, there's just a tendency to assume that if you're wealthy, if you have money, and especially if you're a white guy and above 40 or something.
The white guy part's first.
That you know what you're doing. That it all makes, there's some grand design. There's some grand plan behind it all. There's just a tendency to want to assume that there's a logic there that really does not exist. And we're seeing that at a very high level now. Most
of these guys, it's funny. I feel like a pastor in church. I was like, Lord, talk about what's happening in the government. Can I hear an amen? Can I hear you? Thank you. No, I think here's the thing. There are a lot of assumptions that people make, but I always have to put it in the context of what we had happen in 2024, right? This was not a result of large numbers of American people saying, oh my gosh, I think Trump is so smart. I think Elon Musk is great. The election was a result of large numbers of people saying, I don't like the Democratic Party. I don't think they do enough work, so I'm just going to stay home.
Yeah.
So the Republicans who already liked Trump just came out as they usually do, and that's why he wins.
Yeah.
Most people didn't choose this. Most people didn't say that this is what they wanted.
Right.
They just thought that I don't like Biden. I'm not feeling Harris. We can have an extended conversation about that. And they thought, well, I can white knuckle it through another 4 years of Trump. Yeah. And the mistake they've made is that you're not going to white knuckle it through 4 years of Trump because he ain't only going to be in office for 4 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
You really feel that way.
He ain't going nowhere.
Wow.
That man's going to die in office.
Wow.
Now, if he were to pass away in office, during his term, that would be one thing. I'm not wishing it. I'm just saying I don't think he's going to leave.
The clap was because I agree with you. I don't think he's going to leave. He's going to stay.
No.
It wasn't for death. It was for him not going anywhere.
This is depressing, you guys.
I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah.
Why would he?
Yeah.
Why would he? There's no opposition in this country.
No one tells him no.
Yeah.
At all. Mm-hmm. Ever.
Well, I think this is just a reflection of the fact that government is so inefficient in doing anything quickly. And so, it's difficult to respond to him quickly.
Here's the thing, though. That's not true. The government responds real quick when they want to respond, right? Trust and believe. A bunch of black folk marching down the street, right?
Yeah.
And the government can get cops there and lickety split.
Yeah.
Right? A bunch of people who, fight and push for rights and everything else like that. And look, I understand that they're under threat when they're doing this, right?
Yeah.
But removing the Black Lives Matter, mural, in Washington, D.C. Again, I'm not putting this on the mayor specifically. I understand that she is under a tremendous amount of pressure because of what's happening with Congress and the budget right now. But man, I bet you there's some potholes in that city ain't never been addressed.
Yeah.
But you can get rid of this real quick.
Yeah.
Right? So the government moves very quickly when it wants to move, and it moves very slowly when people don't feel incentivized. That's why I tell folks all the time, it's your government. You paying for these people. Call them. Get up in them on a regular basis, and then you will see change. But you can't sit back and complain all the time, and you don't know who your congressman is.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned before the frustration that a lot of folks are feeling with the Democratic Party, and this is really more of an indication of people's feelings. The result of the election was more of an indication of people's feelings feelings about the Democratic Party than
Yes.
there was any sort of proactive vote in favor of Trump. And we kind of witnessed this with that joint session of Congress that happened when Representative Al Green, and we've all seen the photo at this point, he's shaking his cane and he's talking about them coming after Medicare and Medicaid. And 10 Democrats joined in censuring him.
Yes.
Meaning punishing him for what he did, this outward protest where he had to be removed from the chamber. 10 Democrats who were part of some sort of, I don't remember what the name of the caucus is. Let's all come together caucus.
Yeah. Softy caucus.
Yeah. Participated in censuring this man. What do you make of this? Is the Democratic Party just doomed? I mean, this is just the greatest indicator to me that we just can't figure it out still.
So I want to go back to Al Green waving his cane, right? And I cannot take credit for this. This is from the brilliant writer Michael Harriot. If you've never had him on, Black AF. I know Michael. Michael for years. Work with him, and Michael said we were all chatting about this and said, "Look, if I get thrown out the club and y'all don't leave with me, we ain't people no more." And so when Al Green got kicked out, the fact that they didn't all leave is indicative of what kind of crew you got.
That's a problem. That is a problem in and of itself. Yeah.
If you have that friend, you get kicked out of the club for whatever reason, but the band's about to start. That ain't really the homie, right? you chalk that ticket up to the game. You leave if your friend gets taken out, right? So the fact that the majority of the Democratic Party can't bring themselves together to leave. I mean, the man was talking about Medicare and Medicaid. Yeah. It's not like he was up there saying, Donald Trump, I think you're a terrible person and a cheater and an accused, sexual assaulter, all of which would be functionally true. Yeah. He was talking about policy. Yeah. He got kicked out for talking about policy. Yeah. If y'all can't stand up for that, I don't know what you guys are standing up for. Yeah. Now, I am not a Democrat, right? I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm somebody who cares about this country. This is where my stuff is, right? I think that the Democratic Party needs their own internal Tea Party movement. I think the leadership is not listening to the public. I think on the Senate side, you've got a whole bunch of very old-fashioned thinkers who are not willing to do what's necessary to use the power that they have. I think on the House side, look, Hakeem Jeffries is very well-intentioned, right? Yeah. But the House needs to fight more. Yeah. They need to be more aggressive. The public wants to see shows of strength. Yeah. Get kicked out of the club. Knock some things down. Yeah. Look angry. Because even if you're not successful, people think you're fighting for them. And if I don't think you're fighting for me, right, then why should I vote for you? Yeah. Why should I wait in line 7 hours in Houston to vote for somebody who's going to tell me, give me some more, right? Yeah. Give me some more votes, and then I'll do what you want. No, I already voted for you. Do your damn job.
With this Black Lives Matter mural, which you mentioned before, the thing that has struck me about the response to this mural being taken down, there was a Black Lives Matter mural in D.C., correct? And it was removed, last week or whatever. I haven't really heard a lot of pushback from us. Yeah. And what is that? Why are we not, and I know how it impacts me, and I'm not mad that there hasn't been pushback, but there hasn't been pushback, and I need to know why.
I can't speak for everybody in D.C., right? And I can shout out friends and colleagues of mine who've covered the removal of that mural because it does matter, right? It does make a difference one way or another. I think a lot of people in Washington, D.C. recognize the kind of threat and pressure that the mayor is under. I mean, look, the Republicans are trying to pass a budget that will cut like $1 billion in their funding. Wow. And so the mayor is doing what she thinks is necessary to stave off what would be just incredibly difficult budgetary constraints thrown on the city. Yeah. Now, I am of the belief that, you don't capitulate in advance, right? And I don't know when people are going to understand that acquiescing to a bully don't ever work. Right. Because Trump is not interested in compliance. Yeah. Trump is the president. He can get people to comply. Yeah. What he wants to do is embarrass you, right? I mean, Zelensky a couple weeks ago, Zelensky could have come there in a tutu and shaken his butt on a pole, right? And been like, that's right, give me some money, right? He could have danced in front of the entire White House. Guess what's going to happen? Trump still would have insulted him. Yeah. Trump still would have said, get out of here. He still would have had his lapdog, J.D. Vance, yelling at him. Yeah. So I think people need to understand, make them make you do it. Because if you do it in advance and then they insult you anyway, then what did you accomplish except within a week?
Yeah. You are listening to Radio Free 102.3 FM KJLH. This is The Front Page. My name is Dara Tucker, and I'm here with political commentator, professor. He wears all kinds of hats, Mr. Jason Johnson. We're honored to have you here, Jason. I want to ask you one question before we take a very quick break. I heard an interesting bit of commentary the other day on the topic of fascism. Now, the word fascism is coming up more than it ever has in our nation's history, I would assume. More people are aware of this word, what this word means, are making these comparisons to Hitler and Nazi Germany and all this stuff. And I'm one of those people. My undergrad degree is in international business and German studies. And so I've done actual breakdowns, all of this content on, hey, this is how the moment that we are in compares with what was going on in kind of the early days of Nazi Germany. Let's take a look at these side-by-side comparisons. But I heard someone make a comment a few days ago, or I saw, a Substack article or something that was written that said, hey, we don't even have to go across the waters and overseas back to World War II to even understand how to contextualize this moment in terms of the fascism really that is entering the public square. We can look a lot closer to home, and that is the days of Jim Crow. Yeah. That is one of the first examples of fascism in the United States. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, it's true. Look, I think the problem that we have with terms like fascism and statism and Nazi and stuff like that is because most people don't really know what those things mean, right? And so they think, well, fascism is every street corner I go down, there's going to be a cop with a Make America Great hat there. And so people forget that in Nazi Germany, right, in Mobutu's Congo, anytime you have an authoritarian state, the vast majority of people's lives are fine.
Yeah.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
That's how they get you, right? Because
that's such an important point.
Most people's lives seem normal.
Yeah.
When you had Duterte in the Philippines, it was the same thing. So people need to understand that fascism doesn't come in the form of some massive takeover.
Yeah.
It comes in the form of constraining what you think you can do as an American citizen in order to live a normal life. And that's where the real danger comes in.
We are talking this morning with Jason Johnson, who is one of our foremost political commentators. I'm Dara Tucker. This is The Front Page on Radio Free 102.3 FM, KJLH. We are going to be back with some conversation around the breakdown that I provided this morning about these executive orders that are particularly impacting the Black and brown communities here in the United States. Stay tuned. We are going to take a very brief break, and we will be back with Jason Johnson right after this. Well, good morning and welcome back to The Front Page. I'm Dara Tucker here on Radio Free 102.3 FM KJLH. We are here with our very special guest this morning who is bopping along to the hits, Mr. Jason Johnson. Thank you for being here.
I'm
Jason
glad
Johnson.
to be here. I'm highly entertained. I love this. And here's the thing. And obviously you have people who are listening to the show. You guys sort of replay this later on today. I am a huge fan of local radio.
Yeah.
I really am. It's so necessary. It's so we have so many things that are national through Sirius XM and NPR and everything else like that. Local radio is so important for news, for attitude, for culture. And I love participating here, Houston, Dallas, Chicago. Local radio is so important, especially for our community.
Yeah, I love that you love local radio.
Oh, yeah.
This is actually live. This is live. This is live right now, and we play it later.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You guys replay the show later, and that's also important because it's not just something that people can catch in the morning, something people catch later on the day. So yeah, I feel it's almost like a civic responsibility.
Yeah.
To always support local radio stations. So yeah.
Yeah, we all grew up in the age of radio, kind of that last. The
last era.
Like being radio kids. We have a couple of callers on the line that have a couple of comments for you. We're not really going to take too many calls this morning, but we will go to El Nubian on line 2. El Nubian, thank you for calling The Front Page this morning. Welcome.
Hey, my people. How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Wonderful. Grand Rising.
Thank you, Stevie Wonder, for this radio station. But I wanted to say, this Trump guy, he's telling us drill, oil, but buy Elon's electric car. I'm not understanding that. Okay, as far as education, it seems like they don't want blacks going to the Harvards and the North Carolinas. Are the HBCUs heavily funded, federally funded, and are we going to have less of those? And if we go back, like my dad is a graduate of Prairie View A&M, And he never told me this, but 100 years ago when he was there, I think they were like getting the books from Texas A&M after, the used books. Are we going back to that?
Okay, so there's a bunch of things here. I mean, let's be clear. Like, I always think this is funny when people throw out like Harvard and Yale and Columbia, whatever it is. The vast majority of people in this country don't go to any of these 6 or 7 elite institutions, right? The vast majority of people are going to the University of Akron. They're going to, out here, UC Irvine is considered to be, sort of a more elite institution. Most people don't go to big fancy schools. Yeah. If they go to college, you just go to some regular school, you get a 4-year degree and you go do something. So that is more my concern with what's happening at the Department of Education. The people at the absolute top are going to be fine, right? Yeah. It's everybody else. It's all the other state schools. It's University of North Carolina, Charlotte. That's where I'm more concerned. Now, when it comes to HBCUs, a lot of them, and there was massive misinformation, which was sometimes spread by certain radio hosts, but there's massive disinformation out there about how HBCUs are funded, right? HBCUs don't just get money from the government. What often happens is you have block grants that are given to the states, and those states then use the money to support HBCUs. A lot of schools throughout the country get federal funding in some shape, way, or form, and they have certain things that they can use it on, certain things they can't use it on. So HBCUs are under threat with the Department of Education being dismantled, right? HBCUs are under threat because this administration is inherently hostile to black education, but that may have a lot to do with what individual state that you're in. Right? Yeah. So, for example, I'm in Maryland. I'm not being glib when I say this, but Morgan State is an HBCU. It is a state school, so it's paid for a lot by the state budget, by student tuition. But also, we have a black attorney general, and we have a governor, Wes Moore, who is running for re-election.
Y'all are blackity black in Maryland.
Yes.
Top down.
And Wes Moore is interested in being considered as, if not a presidential candidate, then at least on somebody's ticket for 2028. He has incentive to make sure none of the HBCUs in his state shut down. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But I can't say that's the same for people living under Brian Kemp in Georgia. I can't say that's the same for people living under DeSantis in Florida. So if you care about the status of HBCUs, hey, give to them. Yeah. Give them money. Give them support. Tell your students, tell your young people to apply to these institutions so they can make tuition money, because we don't know what the federal government's going to provide anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And this whole idea of conservatives protesting liberal folks who are getting rid of their Teslas by investing in electric vehicles. That is the contradiction of the ages. As he said, Trump is talking about drill, baby, drill, and all of this stuff.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's not any consistency to this. Like, if you're trying to find a through line to Trumpism, it's whatever he woke up with. It's herding cats in his own brain, right? Like, I'm sorry. If Donald Trump was not the president of the United States, you would consider him to be your senile crazy uncle. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Just a infinitely more dangerous and racist one. Right. And so I don't know why people say, well, wait a minute. Yesterday, Donald Trump said it's the price of eggs. And the next day, Donald Trump said it was DEI. Right. He doesn't care. Right. No one's going to hold him accountable. Right. So as far as Teslas in particular, look, I know people who have Teslas, right? They say Tesla cars are fine. Cybertrucks apparently don't work particularly well and have all sorts of issues with doors and charging and magnets and everything else like that. At the end of the day, I don't really care about Teslas. What I care about is that you have an unelected individual who is exhibiting massive amounts of influence over the federal government without any sort of security clearance, without any background check, and without any oversight. Yeah. That's the problem that I have with Elon Musk.
Absolutely. We are talking today with Jason Johnson, Dr. Jason Johnson, who is a political commentator. He is a professor, and he is helping us to make sense of some of these headlines, if any sense can be made of them at all. We're going to talk to Big Money Griff on line one. Big Money Griff, welcome to the front page.
Thanks, Dara, for taking my call. Jason, I really enjoy watching you on MSNBC over the years.
Thank you.
And you do a wonderful job, bro. And I want you to know that I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate Joy Reid when she was there. However, I wanted to find out from you, what do you think about the boycotting? And would you commentate on the boycotting, nationally speaking? I don't know all the stores that we're not supposed to be going to, but I slipped up and went over to McDonald's the other day, and I made a mistake. But I also wanted to find out from you about the Electoral College. I really feel that if we do, Albert Einstein said it best, the quickest way to insanity is to keep doing the same thing the same way and expect a different result. We know that white people can move in these 7 electoral states and trump up the voting and keep us from ever winning again. And I would like to see our black women take over the Democratic Party. And could you help us get that elected official or the elected head from the Democratic Party to come to California, Los Angeles particularly, so that I can get at him in regards to what I'm sharing with you now?
Okay, Big Money Griff has a lot of questions this morning, Dr. Jason Johnson.
I love local radio so much. I love local radio. Everybody has a Big Money Griff. Every local radio station has a Big Money Griff. I appreciate that. You can't do local radio without this. All right, let me do a quick rundown. So one, here's the thing about boycotts. I think people need to understand that boycotts are a short-term thing. And as far as I'm concerned, boycotting is less important than directing where you spend your money, right? So, for example, Black Farmer Index, blackfarmerindex.com. It's a wonderful website to go to. It is a list of black farmers in every single state in the United States. I made a conscious decision about 6 weeks ago to start using blackfarmers.com to get my groceries from black farmers in Maryland rather than going to local grocery stores. Wow. That is more important than me not going to Target.
Right.
If we just had a 2 or 3% increase in the amount that we bought from black farmers, it would have a huge, first off, a lot of these brothers and sisters would be able to keep their farms, right? They wouldn't have to depend on the federal government to hold them. They wouldn't have to be in these sorts of lawsuits. So again, boycott Target if you want to. Boycott Costco if you want to. Those things are fine if that's how you want to affect the world politically. I don't know that those things have the kind of impact that they used to. And anybody who's talking about, well, we had the Montgomery bus boycott. That was a closed economic system, right? It was like, here's the bus. Use it or don't, right? In order to hurt Amazon, in order to hurt Target, you're going to have to do a lot over an extended period of time. And if you never want to go to Target again, that's fine. But that's low-key what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to hit Target the way that people hit Denny's back in the 90s. Like, you remember Denny's ain't never recover from those lawsuits with those black FBI agents. That's what you're going to have to do. And if you want to, fine. But here's the thing. What are you going to do with that money? Spend it with black farmers. Spend it with black commerce. That's so much more important. What you do buy with your money is more important than when you don't go and spend.
I absolutely agree. Boycotts, I think they call them, versus boycotts. We have Miss Molly Bell on line 2. We're going to get to one more call before we talk about these executive orders. Miss Molly Bell, thanks for calling. Welcome to the front page.
Well, thank you. Well, reparations in memory of our ancestors. And to our guests, you've made some wonderful points. But when it comes to Brother Al Green, I think he was out of order. Our oppressor cannot be our teacher. This is the kind of stuff that Trump does. This is the kind of stuff that Elon Musk does. This is the kind of stuff that the Republicans do. And now he has lost a big position in his seat for doing that. And that's all we're talking about when everything else is still going on. I think that Al Green made a mistake. We should say that he shouldn't have done it, because how are we going to tell Trump and Elon what they can't do, and we're doing it ourselves? All I'm just saying is that we've got to be more strategic about everything that we do. Jim Brown says, for us, our thinking progress is establish the facts. First of all, eliminate the negatives. Establish the facts and choose your best option. To me, that wasn't our best option. But everything else you said, my brother, I'm crazy about. Prayer warriors, keep fasting, keep praying, because the struggle continues. And always, to God be the glory. Thank you, Sister Dara.
All right. Thank you for calling, Miss Molly Bell.
I feel like I've been anointed, and I just got some butterscotch candy from...
I think you did.
From a very important person. I am humbled and flattered.
She's a VIP.
Yes.
Miss Molly Bell.
Yeah, I fundamentally disagree. I think that what Al Green did was necessary. I think it's important. I think that I think the idea of contrasting what he did to Trump's behavior is a mistake. The idea is not what we tell Trump to do. The idea is your job as a representative is to represent. And if your constituents are upset, if your constituents are threatened, then you express that. He didn't break the law. He didn't physically assault anyone. He didn't throw anything. He said, hey, this policy that is important to the lives of the people in my community is under threat because of this person up here, and I'm going to make a point about that. I'm never going to have a problem with a member of Congress actually representing their people in an aggressive fashion. We see in Korea, we see in Japan, we see in Israel. You can see all sorts of different places where they're sort of legislative bodies have gotten into physical altercations because people are that serious about it. I don't have a problem with that. I never have.
Absolutely. I think there is a certain segment, I would say, of the population that is concerned about this question of decorum, the ugliness that Trump and his ilk have brought into the fore. Just our norms. I keep saying I'm so tired of hearing this talk about norms at this point because he has knocked them all down and he does not care. So why do we continue to have these conversations around norms? What is this fundamental desire to hold on to our norms in spite of watching someone like him just come through and absolutely decimate them, do what he wants to do, but we cannot respond in kind.
Well, yeah, it also just shows that most of our country is run by good intentions and gentlemen's agreements, right? Like when everybody used to talk about, we've got guardrails. The guardrails are made of silly string and tissue paper.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you can basically do whatever you want until somebody tells you no. Right? And so for that reason, we need to stop pretending. This was one of the biggest mistakes with Joe Biden. And I have huge issues with Joe Biden. I've told people I think he was one of the worst presidents we've ever had in American history. And he was so concerned with norms and institutions and everything else like that he failed to recognize what was actually happening in front of his face. We cannot keep operating as if this country is where we were 25, 30 years ago. You have to see where people are now. There was a time where, you didn't have personal time off at your job. There was a time where you had to hide the fact that you were a parent. There were times where, a member of Congress couldn't say, hey, I want to be able to breastfeed, in the well, blah, blah, blah. The country changes. It changes for the better. And if people want a bit more passion in their representation, I don't see why anybody should be upset with that. And that's certainly a lot better than sitting back and trying to be nice to people who smack you in the face.
Yeah, absolutely. I have done a lot of content around Project 2025.
Oh, boy.
And a lot of these executive orders, I do want to have this conversation about executive orders, but I keep saying we're going to get to. A lot of these executive orders have really been a reflection of policies that were lined out very clearly in Project 2025. I mean, almost verbatim, some of these executive orders have followed exactly what they said they were going to do. I mean, you can't necessarily say that even though Trump pretended he didn't know what Project 2025 was.
He honestly may not have known because it ain't like the man reads.
It isn't like he reads. But if you read the manual, then you understand what is happening right now. And the fundamental thing that is really being addressed right now is this issue of executive power. How much power lies within the executive branch, meaning Trump, his cabinet, versus the legislative branch or the judicial branch. These branches were never meant to have this much power. It really should lie with the executive. Can you talk to us a little bit about the philosophy behind this, the framers of Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, and Federalist Society or whomever? What is this deal with saying, the framers of the Constitution never intended for these other branches to really carry the power that they do?
Well, what you have is a situation where I have said this for a very, very long time. I don't really think there is a Republican Party anymore. It is a sort of a dime store front for a terrorist organization called MAGA, right? I have said that for a very long time. There are very few Republican representatives anymore. It has turned into a personality cult for the president of the United States. And consequently, party responsibility ends up trumping what your government and federal responsibilities are. Congress is who decides what the budget is, and Congress distributes the money. And then the Supreme Court determines whether or not that money is distributed, fairly or legally, or laws are broken. And the executive is the one who sort of lays out the budget. Everybody knows what the three separated powers are. I mean, you learn that in school. You learn that in history. You learn that in Miss Frizzle, whatever PBS show that you watched growing up. Like, I'm sure Barney talked about Congress at some point, Purple Dinosaur, whatever. Anyway, the point is, Congress is not asserting their power because Congress is run by the Republican organization. That's what this boils down to. I mean, it's not like the rules aren't there. The rules should say, hey, you can't yank $800 million in funding back from something that's already in the budget. That's not legal.
Yeah.
And Congress should be able to just say, we're not going to do that. You can't. We budgeted this already. If we can just take back money, if Dodge, this unelected guy, can just take back money for things that we have already put in the budget, then our budgets don't mean anything.
Yeah.
So Congress as individuals, Congress as representatives of particular districts that are affected, Congress as a whole should probably be suing this administration or suing Dodge or something else like that. Even as individuals, they're not doing that because they've been completely captured.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Supreme Court, where we have a number of Supreme Court justices who are not only very likely being paid off, right? I mean, we saw that with Clarence Thomas last year, but who are so ideologically committed to Trump as an individual, right? Not as the presidency, not as a Republican, but Trump as an individual, that nobody's holding anybody accountable.
Yeah.
So that's how this stuff happens. It's never been legal. It's just no one wants to assert their authority.
So this whole idea that this is what the framers intended, that the president was supposed to be able to behave almost unilaterally and to not have to worry about having the permission of Congress or of the judiciary, that his will should reign supreme. This is really what the writers of Project 2025 are saying, that this is the way the framers intended it. This is the way it was supposed to be in the beginning. Yeah. And we're setting it right. We're putting it back, like it should have been.
White supremacy has no consistent government or economic philosophy. And that's what's driving this. Steve Bannon's a white supremacist, Stephen Miller, the people who are responsible for this.
Yes.
So, for example, white supremacy likes democracy until it doesn't work for them anymore, right? I mean, like, everybody thought that the way that elections were working were fine in America as long as you kept having white people elect a president. But once you had a black man get elected in 2008, you had a lot of these organizations say, wait a minute, we need to reevaluate voting and all these. I mean, think about it. In 1994, you didn't hear about this kind of voter suppression that you started seeing in places like Georgia and North Carolina and Florida and Texas. You didn't hear about that stuff as much until Obama got into office, right? Then it was like, oh, hey, maybe this, blah, blah, blah. Here, we're in Los Angeles. The idea of jury nullification, right? You remember that after OJ? And everybody was like, wait a minute, maybe the jury should go against what a judge. The only reason that happens because people were mad that this black man ended up getting off for the crime that he was accused of. So we have to understand, and I've been saying this about Trump, there is no consistency. The consistency is we want this president to have this kind of power because he will push forward this particular agenda. And if it ever becomes something else, right? If you had a President Bernie Sanders, but you had the same Supreme Court and you had a Republican-controlled House, they would suddenly be saying different things.
Fighting for it.
Yeah, they would be like, the House has got to stand up to the imperial Bernie presidency. That's what would happen.
There would be a different argument.
Exactly, completely
entirely.
different argument. Entirely.
We are talking with Dr. Jason Johnson, who is a political commentator. He is a professor. You have seen him on MSNBC if you happen to watch that network, and we're very honored to have him here on the front page on Radio Free 102.3 FM KJLH. My name is Dara Star Tucker. In our closing moments of this conversation, Dr. Johnson, I want to talk about the place of black folks in all of this, because there are a lot of different conversations being had around, our positionality with all of this. We have historically been the freedom fighters. We've been the ones that have been out there on the front lines, risking our lives, risking our bodies. And, up until very recently, with Black Lives Matter protests and all of this stuff. And now we're seeing a bit of a different stance coming from some significant portions of the population, including the so-called 92%, black women who are saying, hey, a lot of us we're just sort of done with this, putting ourselves on the line for all of this. I've seen memes going around where black women are sitting around sipping tea and watching the world burn. And, which in my estimation is a bit of a fantasy. I mean, what in your estimation is the proper response from black folks within this current political moment?
I'm going to start with the meme, and then I'm going to take you to a larger historical thing that people need to understand. First off, we have to stop believing anything that we see on Instagram and TikTok. Stop believing that these things are no longer organic, right? Like when Jack used to run Twitter, he didn't care, right? He was a distant property owner. It's like whatever actually organically happens on Twitter, it's fine. But you have to understand that Mark Zuckerberg and Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, they are turning the crank. They want that theme to be out there.
Wow.
They want black people to say, yeah, I'm going to sit back, because then it will make us not fight for our own rights. No real activist that I know has sat down and said, I'm going to sit back and let this burn.
Right.
There are people dying out there. There are people who will die because of what's going on. So anytime you see these memes, I don't know one person who I know, and it's real cute. It's real cute if you want to be out there and be like, I'm not going to do anything. What'd you do before? Right? What'd you do before? I'm very clear about the fact that I'm an academic, I'm a scholar, I'm a professor, I'm a creator. I'm not an activist. So I don't pretend to have a job that I don't have. But nobody whose real commitment to our people has been sustainable is suddenly going to stop just because a bunch of people made the wrong decision during the election. So I don't buy that meme. I've never bought it. Nobody who's an activist who I know believes it. Second thing is this, and everybody needs to understand this. This is cyclical history. Okay, and I tell people this all the time about what we're facing and how long we're dealing with. You look at the 1820s to the 1860s. The 1820s were some of the worst times for the reoppression of black people, even during enslavement. You had more of the slave codes come out. You had more of the sort of repression of revolts, and everything was getting increasingly terrible until about 1865. Then we have the Civil War. Things got better, 30 or 40 years. And then we get to the 1920s. You have the bloody summer of 1919. You had more lynchings, more violence, really, really, really bad economic downturn, World War II. Then 1965 Civil Rights Act. It gets a little better for 20 or 30 or 40 years. We're in the 2020s.
Yeah.
American history dictates it's going to be about 40 years.
Yeah.
We're not getting out of this anytime soon.
Yeah.
People need to stop pretending that we are one election or one protest away. We need to buckle down and prepare for the fact that many of us will probably not necessarily live to see the other end of this, but you got to fight for it anyway.
Absolutely.
We had Oscar Micheaux, we had creators, we had all sorts of brilliant things that our people did in the 1820s and the 1920s. Don't mean you quit. It doesn't mean you give up, but it means you recognize how long the fight is.
Yeah.
And if people start realizing how long the fight is and stop getting excited about some fake meme that they see or recognizing what happens this week or that week, we have to think about the long-term existence and survival of our people. And if we have that attitude and the joy that comes with the fact that we have survived this before and we will survive this again and thrive on the other end, I'll see you guys in 2065 because we'll be ready.
Dr. Jason Johnson. You have a round of applause coming from our producer, Danny Morrison, who is super excited right now. And I am too. I'm so honored that you chose to come and spend time with us. Please tell me that you will do this again.
Most definitely. Yes. I had a great time, and I love being here. Like I said, I love local radio. I love our Jason Johnson. Please make sure that you sign up for my Instagram. That's actually where I'm going to be relaunching. Also, you can subscribe to my YouTube at Dr. Jason Johnson. That's where I'll be relaunching my podcast, A Word. So keep posted.
You are an inspirational figure for all of us, Dr. Jason Johnson. Please do follow him because he's always got something informative and good to say. I'm Dara Star Tucker, and you have been listening to The Front Page here on Radio Free 102.3 FM KJLH. I'm looking forward to doing this with you all again at the same time and the same place tomorrow. We have Freedom Friday coming up, so all of your questions, gather them up and get them ready to discuss on Freedom Friday. You got one more thing to say, Jason?
Just want to mention, tomorrow's my birthday, so I'd really like you guys to sign up.
Happy birthday. Go follow Jason for his birthday. Looking forward to talking all of this down with you all on Freedom Friday tomorrow. Until then, you all do take care of yourselves and each other.